Soon, the 21st of December 2012 will be upon us, and many people are asking what this Mayan calendar thing is all about. While only a few really seem to think the end of the world is at hand, is there really something coming that the Maya predicted over 1,000 years ago? We've probably all seen the film 2012. Are we in for a bumpy ride, or is the 21st just going to be another day? Does the Mayan calendar really tell us that the world is about to change? Is it really the end of life as we know it? So, who were the Maya? They were one of many civilizations which have developed in Mesoamerica, or Central America, over the last 4,000 or so years. Some signs of organized settlement go back to the time of pyramid building in Egypt, in other words, 4,500 years ago. But the first distinct civilization were the Olmec, beginning about 1500 BC. They lived largely along the Gulf Coast, which you can see in the mustard colour. The next were the Maya, from about 200 BC, and they lived in the areas shaded pink. The last great areas for civilization were in the central part of Mexico, known as the Valley of Mexico. Teotihuacan was the first, but abandoned and burned after an apparent civil war or upheaval in the 8th century AD. The Toltecs then took over, and the last group to move in were the Aztecs, starting about 1300 AD. The Aztec Empire was founded in 1427, and it quickly extended. It seemed magnificent and unassailable, but it was to last less than 100 years, because Mesoamerica was about to get a series of unexpected visits from across the Atlantic. In 1492, as we all know from the childhood rhyme, a man named Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered the New World. In 4 voyages, Columbus not only ensured the wealth of Spain, he changed the face of Europe and the world. The age of conquistadors began, and the first was the most famous or infamous. Hernan Cortés would become a marquis through it, but he would not be remembered in Mexico with any fondness. In July 1519, Cortés landed at Veracruz and prepared to march inland to the fabled city he'd heard of. He burned his ships to show his men there was no turning back. On the 8th of November 1519, he emerged from a mountain pass and an awe-inspiring sight lay before him. The vast city of Tenochtitlan, bigger than any city in Europe except for Constantinople. He and his men lived there for 5 months, amassing a treasure of gold and holding the Aztec Emperor Montezuma hostage. But after Montezuma's death, the Spaniards were driven out. They returned in December 1520 and besieged the city. It fell on 13th of August 1521, after an 8-month siege. With it fell the Aztec Empire. Much of Tenochtitlan was already in ruins, but Cortés razed the rest to the ground and had Mexico City built over the ruins. The surviving Aztecs were driven out. 60 years of war followed before central Mexico was subdued. The conquest of the Mayan Yucatan lands took 170 years. Traditional religion was suppressed, and smallpox killed up to 90% of the population in some areas. Mesoamerican cities were abandoned and left to rot and return to the jungle, forgotten by all but a few. It was the travel tradition of the European Romantic movement, such as Lord Byron, which would lead to a gradual rediscovery. American explorer, writer, and spy John Lloyd Stephens was to prove the catalyst for a new fascination with these mysterious ruins. Together with English architect Frederick Catherwood, he visited numerous Mayan sites in 1839 and 40. Stephens wrote a bestseller travel book, which Catherwood illustrated, beginning a Maya craze. His folios are a valuable record of how the cities looked back then. Chichen Itza and the Pyramid of Kukulkan. Uxmal and Tulum. So this was the mystery. Who built these lost cities? Was it ancient Egyptians? Could it have been people from much earlier escaping the sinking Atlantis? Surely not the natives. And how did this enigmatic writing work? What did the mysterious glyphs represent? Were they perhaps whole words, as in Chinese shu, or cuneiform amagi, or Egyptian bik? Or were they syllables, as in Chinese hansu, meaning Chinese character, where the modern Japanese word kanji comes from? Or were they sounds, as in our own alphabet, k, a, t, cat? Or perhaps they were a combination of all three. Since the Romantic movement's travellers had visited Maya territory in the 1800s, an image had arisen that the Maya were a race of philosopher-astronomers, and the conservative attitudes of most researchers up until the 1950s meant little progress was made in deciphering the script and expanding understanding. But new advances in reading the script made it increasingly clear that the Maya were absolutely part of the region and its traditions, including the less savoury ones. What had previously not made a lot of sense now suddenly fell into place. For the Maya, time was at the centre of their being, and it pervaded every aspect of their lives. Days were representations of gods, each with their own personal characteristics. Priests could divine the energies of a particular day or course of action. Prediction was possible because time was not considered linear, but cyclic, and it therefore repeated. This concept is not unfamiliar to some of us in the West. It was known in ancient Egypt, to medieval people in the idea of the Wheel of Fortune, and to Western astrologers. The most important difference was that time was not defined in years, but in multiple cycles of days. When we talk about the Mayan calendar, we're actually talking about something that doesn't exist. There is no Mayan calendar as such. It was actually several calendars, all working at different paces for different purposes. The sacred calendar was the Tzolk'in of 260 days. The secular calendar, or harp, of 360 days corresponded to the solar year, with the addition of 5 extra days called the Uayu. The Tunban Kark, of 52 years, is known to us today as the calendar round. And then the long count calendar is 5,125 years, and this was the measure used by the classical Maya. But for the late Maya and the Aztecs, this count was too long, so they adopted another count of 256 years, known as the short count. All clear now? Well, if you're confused, that's exactly where a lot of the dispute about this whole Mayan calendar end of the world date comes from. In addition to these calendars, there were also other cycles known as the Venus count of 584 days, the moon cycle, the Lords of the Night of 9 days, and distance measures. How did all these fit together? Imagine a series of cogwheels of different sizes, all interlocking within and around each other, and you have an idea how they worked in unison. The long count was the longest traditional count and measured grand cycles. The Maya determined that the current cycle's start date was at the end of the previous one at the turnover point of a measure called 13 pictuns, which we see written as 13 with 4 zeros separated by dots. This day was supposed to be what was called a 4-ahau day, which is the name of the day god and the number of the month. If we translate this into our Gregorian calendar, we get a start date for this great age or sun of 11th of August 3114 BC, although this is disputed. When the long count again reaches 13 pictuns, the counter is supposed to either simply reset or the world ends, depending on your point of view. That reset date is also going to be a 4-ahau day, and the most widely accepted date for it is 21st of December 2012. But this is disputed. It could also be the 23rd of December or a number of other dates. An amazing thing about the Maya and other Mesoamericans is the way they built astronomical knowledge and observation right into their architecture. For example, the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan has its west face aligned with the midnight setting point of the Pleiades when situated directly overhead. According to some legends, the Mesoamericans originally came from the Pleiades. This is the famous Aztec sunstone. It was excavated in Mexico City in 1790 and is currently in the National Museum of Anthropology, Mexico City. It was apparently carved in 1479 and is probably a calendar stone, but this has been disputed. Some people believe sacrifices and other ceremonies took place on it. There are 4 square boxes around a central circle representing the 4 great ages or suns that have already passed in the Aztec mythology. The 5th and present sun is in the central circle. The Maya view of the creations is slightly different in its characters and events, but the main difference is that they believed that there had been only 4 suns, not 5. According to the predominant Aztec legend, there will be no more suns. However, another line of thought is that this last sun is in a circle, and therefore stable, which means it could last forever. Which brings us to the so-called Mayan prophecy. The long count of 5,125 years is the basis of the prophecy hysteria about the Mayan calendar and 2012. But there is already considerable doubt about the date of 21st of December 2012 if we take into account archaeology and historical research. Incidentally, everywhere we look to find out about the Mayan calendar, we tend to see an image of the Aztec sunstone. But the Aztec sunstone is not the Mayan calendar, although it has come to be equated with it in recent times. The Maya did not make it, and by the time it was made, their great cities already lay long abandoned. But according to some, the 21st of December is the end of the world. How is it supposed to come about? Some of the predictions of destruction for the winter solstice of 21 December 2012 include threats from various deities, the return of Quetzalcoatl, God bringing on Judgment Day, what's new about that, and the rapture. What is intriguing about this is the fact that a Picton is 144,000 days, the same number of devotees forecast in Revelation to be taken up in the rapture. However, we should remember that 144,000 is a mystical number in several religions. Then we also have intergalactic threats such as the galactic alignment and a galactic superwave, a supernova explosion, first contact with aliens, and then we've got threats from within the solar system, which include the collision with or interference in our orbit from planet X, otherwise known as Nibiru, a reversal of the Sun's magnetic poles, destructive solar flares, a comet or asteroid strike, and then we have Earth-based threats, which include a reversal or shift of the Earth's magnetic poles, the failure of the Earth's magnetic field, Earth shifts and catastrophic earthquakes, and the eruption of one or more supervolcanoes, for example Yellowstone. At least that's what they say is going to happen. But is it? If you'd like to find out more, have a look at my website, and I also have 2 videos which you can download. Video 1 looks in detail at the historical and archaeological background of the debate. Find out about the real Maya, what happened to them, how their civilization was rediscovered after lying literally in ruins for centuries. In video 1, you will learn about the mysteries of the Maya and their fabulous lost cities, their mysterious writing, their lost arcane knowledge, and the not one, but many calendars that have caused so much recent controversy. Video 2 goes into detail about the great ages or suns, which give rise to the idea that the end of this age is almost upon us. Then we look at whether there are any credible Maya prophecies, as opposed to the fevered imaginings of our 2012 prophets of doom. We look at the history of predicted apocalypses through the ages. We look at the major personalities of the 2012 craze and what they and others have claimed is going to happen. Then we see what scientists, what Nostradamus, who just keeps getting dragged into things like this, and what modern astrologers have to say about this. And finally, before we come to the end, perhaps literally, we hear what the modern day Maya have to say. So, if you would like to follow up on the 2012 controversy, just follow the URL in the description box below or visit the website at mayancalendar.com.au.